Welcome to my site. Hope you enjoyed part 1 of this series, so here is part 2. And don't forget, please like and subscribe. The Bull's Head. Between 1755 and 1779, John Shawcross kept a licensed house called the Horseshoes at the bottom of Thorpe Hill, probably facing Water Street, Bardsley Brow. In 1790, just after the completion of the Turnpike Road through the town, the Horseshoes was renamed the Bull's Head, and it was likely that it was rebuilt at this time to front Bardsley Brow. The Bull's Head was owned and kept by Samuel Fielding, a former hatter, from 1803 until his death on the 23rd of March 1815. By this time, the street had been renamed George Street, presumably after George I, who had been monarch for 50 years. The Bull's Head was the scene of a serious affray in April 1820. A group of soldiers billeted at the pub got into a fight with some locals and the furniture was destroyed. 2 young men were severely wounded. Jonathan Buckley was hit with a large shovel and the youth was attacked with a red-hot poker. Another party of soldiers from the barracks fought with the townsfolk in the streets, resulting in 18 people being wounded, and an old man called Armstrong had his ear cut off. Oldham's deputy constable and his men were attacked and driven from the streets. When they tried to restore order after the incident, petitions were sent to the House of Commons and the soldiers were sent to Carlisle. A year later, there was another fight at the Bull's Head between one Joseph Rayner and a Mark Fisher. The latter was killed and Rayner was committed to Lancaster for trial. Arthur Trimble and his roller arrived in 1979 and he was the last licensee. The pub was closed in 1988 and Arthur moved to the Roebuck in King Street. The Bull's Head was demolished the following year to make way for a new precinct. The Bull's Head originally nestled in a hamlet below Mill Brow, next to the River Medlock. It stood on the old road, which was turnpiked as early as 1735. It seems likely that James Butterworth was the innkeeper here from 1746. The Bull's Head remained in private ownership until 1947, when a Manchester brewery, J.G. Swales and Co., bought the property. In 1970, this company and its 38 tied houses were taken over by Boddington's brewery. Today the Bull's Head is owned by the Boddington Pub Company. In 1909, the Carrion Crew was bought by William Forsyth Limited, wine and spirits merchants at 33 Yorkshire Street. In 1935, they installed a modern bar with counter and flap, and later converted the original kitchen into another drinking room. The pub changed hands again sometime after the 1940s, when Walker Kane acquired the property. In 1960, the brewery merged with Tetley of Leeds, and in 1967, Tetley Walker became part of the Allied Breweries. The Carrion Crew saw some major alterations in 1982. The Cheshire cheese at Smithy Fold was one of Oldham's oldest hostelries, and according to Rowbottom, the Oldham diarist, it was kept by John Houghton until 1742, when he moved. Wilson's Brewery bought the Cheshire cheese from Schofield's family in 1898, but 7 years later the licence was refused on the grounds that the building was not structurally suitable for licensed premises. The rooms were small and the passage at the rear was narrow, and the police said it was difficult to supervise the premises. Wilson's appealed against the judgment and won a reprieve for the pub. 20 years later, the police again objected to the licence, and this time they won. The Cheshire cheese was referred for compensation, and so one of Oldham's oldest licences was surrendered on the 5th of August 1926. It is likely that the Coach and Horses at Waterhead was opened by William Warner, who listed as the innkeeper there in 1811. More alterations were made in 1958. The passage and bathroom above were removed and a new covered way built to a new gents' urinal and lavatory. The kitchen remained, as did the covered yard on the taproom side of the pub. Major changes were made in 1969-70 when the covered yard was incorporated into the pub and became a fine lounge. Today the Coach and Horses belongs to the Boddington Pub Company. John Whitehead was back by 1813, changing the name to the Coach and Horses. John was a busy man, a timber merchant, builder and a bell ringer, as well as an alehouse keeper. The Coach and Horses closed in 1920 when it was decided that the licence was no longer needed and the pub was referred to the Compensation Authority. The building survived for a number of years as the headquarters of the British Legion Club. In July 1931, What remained of the coach and horses was demolished to open up Lord Street, which until then had to go round the property. A newspaper report at the time stated that the building dated from the early 17th century. The Collier's Arms Cross stands on the corner of Honeywell Lane and Ashton Road. Honeywell Lane follows the part of the old Roman road from Manchester, and where the road from Ashton to Oldham crossed this ancient way, the settlement of Cross was established. The group of buildings at Cross is shown on early 19th century maps, and Rowbottom, the diarist, says that a house at Cross near Hathershaw received a licence on the 1st of September 1819. Taylor's Eagle Brewery of Manchester bought the Collier's Arms Cross in 1900. The brewery was responsible for major alterations about 1948, when the stairs were moved and some internal walls were taken down. Rothwell's Brewery of Newton Heath. Robert Coop took over from Mr. Ashworth about 1831, and he changed the name to the Carter's Arms. Then came Thomas Littlewood, who preferred the Blacksmith's Arms. The final change came in the 1840s when Edward Lloyd decided upon the Commercial Inn. The Commercial survived until 1928, when it was decided that the licence was no longer needed and it was referred for compensation. The pub closed on the 28th of December, and the corporation subsequently acquired the building and demolished it. The Commercial stood on the south corner of Harley Street, which was named after James Harley, who obtained a licence for the pub in 1853. In the early 1960s, Oldham County Corporation started dishing out compulsory purchase orders so they could clear the way for the Oldham Bypass Road. The Corporation Arms was right in the middle of a planned roundabout on Manchester Street, which still exists. Was the next street down from Hartley Street. Eric Taylor closed the doors for the last time on Sunday the 13th of April 1969, and the pub was pulled down in the August. A lot of the information from this video I got from this excellent book by Rob McGee. And please don't forget, like and subscribe.